You know what nobody tells you about grief? It doesn't feel like sadness. Not at first, anyway. It feels like confusion, like you're walking through a fog and everything looks familiar but somehow nothing feels right. You reach for your phone to text them. You see something funny and think, oh, they'd love this. You turn around to say something and they're not there. And for a split second, you forget. And then you remember, and it hits you all over again. That's the thing about losing someone you love. It's not one big moment of heartbreak, it's 1,000 tiny moments, every single day, and nobody warns you about that part. When my grandmother passed, I thought I was prepared. She was older, she was sick, it wasn't sudden. But when the day actually came, I realized there's no such thing as prepared. You can know something is coming and still feel like the ground fell out from under you. Because grief isn't about logic. It's not about accepting the facts, it's about the space they left behind. The empty chair, the unused mug, the text thread that will never get a reply again. It's the silence that follows a voice you've known your whole life. That's what grief is. It's the absence of someone who was supposed to be here. And your brain just doesn't know how to process that. Here's the part that really messed me up. I wasn't sad all the time. I'd be fine. I'd be laughing at something stupid. I'd be having a normal day. And then out of nowhere, a wave would hit. I'd be driving and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I'd be grocery shopping and see something they used to like and I'd just start crying in the middle of the aisle. And I'd think, why now? Why here? Why this? But grief doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't care if you're at work or at a party or in line for coffee. It shows up when it wants to. And you just have to let it happen. There's a reason for that, actually. When you lose someone you love, your brain literally has to rewire itself. The neural pathways that connected to that person, the ones that fired every time you talked to them, every time you thought about them, every time you shared a moment, they're still there. But now there's nothing at the end. You're sending signals to a person who's not receiving anymore. And that disconnect, that misfire, is what we call grief. It's your brain trying to reconcile the fact that someone who was such a huge part of your existence just doesn't exist anymore. And it takes time for those pathways to reshape, for your brain to understand the new reality. Until then, you're going to get ambushed by a memory, a smell, a song, a date on a calendar, and that's not weakness, that's wiring. What nobody told me about grief was how lonely it is. Even with people around you, even with friends who care, there's a part of you that nobody else can reach. Because everybody else is still going about their lives. They're still laughing, still planning, still talking about the future. And you're just stuck. In the past, in the moment before everything changed, in the memory of someone who was your anchor. And you start to feel like you're on an island, watching everyone else live. And you don't want to bring them down. You don't want to be the one who's always sad. So you pretend, you smile. You say, I'm okay when you're not. You do what you need to do to get through the day. And at night, you lie in bed and wonder if this is the rest of your life. If you're ever going to feel normal again. If you're ever going to feel like yourself. Here's something I wish someone had told me. You're not supposed to feel like yourself. Because the self that existed before they left, that person is gone too. Grief changes you. It reshapes you. It takes your old self and makes a new one. And that new self is a little heavier, a little quieter, a little more aware of how fragile everything is. But that doesn't mean the new self is broken. It just means you're different. And different is okay. It's actually necessary. Because you're carrying them with you now. Not just their memory, but the person they made you. The part of them that lives in you. And that's a weight, but it's also a gift. You get to keep them that way. In how you talk, in how you love, in how you show up for the people who are still here. You know what the hardest part is for most people? It's not the initial loss. It's the days after. When everyone goes back to their lives and you're still standing in the rubble. When the casseroles stop coming and the calls stop coming and suddenly it's just you and the silence. That's when grief really sets in. That's when you realize you have to keep going. Even though you're not sure why. Even though it feels pointless. Even though every day is a struggle. Just to get out of bed. And people say things like they would want you to be happy. And you know they mean well, but it doesn't help. because you're not ready to be happy. You're not ready to move on. And that's okay. That's actually normal. When my friend lost his brother, he described it to me in a way I'll never forget. He said it's like you're in a room and there's a big black hole in the middle of the floor. And you know it's there. You know you have to walk around it. But sometimes you forget and you step into it and you fall. And it's terrifying and confusing and you don't know how you're going to get out. But over time, the room gets a little bigger. The hole's still there. It doesn't get smaller. It never goes away. But you learn where it is. You learn to walk around it. You learn that you can still live in that room. You just have to be careful. And sometimes you still fall. Sometimes you have a bad day and you fall right in. But you've gotten better at climbing out, and that's what healing looks like. It's not the hole getting smaller. It's you getting stronger. Here's what I need you to understand. There's no right way to grieve. No timeline. No manual. No checklist of stages you're supposed to hit. That whole 5 stages thing, it was never meant to be a linear process. You're going to go through them in any order you want, multiple times, sometimes all at once. One day you'll feel angry. One day you'll feel numb. One day you'll feel almost okay, and then the next day you're back at square one. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're human. It means you love them. And love doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. And grief is that somewhere. I remember telling my therapist once that I felt like I was getting worse, not better. And she said something that changed everything. She said, "You're not getting worse. You're just finally feeling it." Because I had been suppressing it, I had been keeping myself busy, staying distracted, not letting myself fully feel the loss, and eventually your body demands to be felt. It can't hold it all in forever. And when you finally let yourself feel, it's overwhelming. But it's also the only way through. You have to feel it to heal it. You can't bypass it. You can't outrun it. You can't ignore it until it goes away. Because it won't, it'll just wait. And it'll come out sideways. In ways that scare you. In ways that damage your relationships and your health and your peace of mind. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's permission. Permission to not be okay. Permission to cry at random times. Permission to be angry at the universe. Permission to still love them with everything you have even though they're gone. Permission to hold on to their stuff. Permission to talk to them out loud. Permission to not get over it. You don't get over grief. You get through it. You get around it. You get used to carrying it. But you don't get over it. And anyone who tells you otherwise hasn't been through real loss. Here's the other thing. Grief has a weird way of making you feel guilty. You feel guilty when you laugh too hard. You feel guilty when you have a good day. You feel guilty when you're not sad enough, like you're betraying them by being okay. And that's one of the cruelest tricks your brain plays on you, because they wouldn't want that. They wouldn't want you to stop living. They'd want you to be okay. They'd want you to laugh. They'd want you to find joy again, not because they don't matter, but because they matter so much that they wouldn't want their absence to ruin you. The best way to honor someone you love is to live fully, to carry their memory but also to create new ones, to let yourself be happy without guilt. I used to think moving on meant forgetting, that if I wasn't constantly mourning, I was somehow being disrespectful. But that's not how it works. Moving on is not about forgetting, it's about integrating. It's about learning to hold the grief in one hand and life in the other. It's about accepting that they're gone and still choosing to stay, still choosing to show up, still choosing to love. That takes strength, more than you know. And if you're doing that, if you're just getting out of bed, if you're just making it through the day, you're already braver than you think.